Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting me. My project, Creativity and Craft Production in Middle and Late Bronze Age Europe, or CIMBA, brings together 6 academic partners and 2 non-academic partners. It's led by me at the University of Southampton, and as you can see, we've got partners from the University of Cambridge, the Norwegian University of Science and Technology, Zagreb Archaeological Museum, the National Museum of Denmark, the Natural History Museum in Vienna, the Crafts Council, and Land of Legends, or Sandlandet Lyra Archaeological Park in Denmark. Our project brings together this critical mass of people as part of the HERA creativity strand. The basic premise of the project is that creativity has always been part of human history, and our collaborative research project is both distinct and complementary to the other HERA creativity projects in using the unique time depth offered by archaeology to investigate creativity in prehistory over the longue durée at local, regional and transnational levels. In particular, we're exploring creativity during the Middle and Late Bronze Age in the period approximately 1800 to 800 or 500 BC, depending on where you are in Europe, through developments in decorative motifs, techniques and skill for 3 different materials, textiles, pottery and metal. And we're also looking at the potential impact that ancient craft objects may have as a source of creative inspiration for contemporary makers and the public. We identified our partners based on the complementary competence and expertise that each brings to the project and the materials that we were working with. So in a sense, our partners were self-selecting in as much as we have colleagues who are experts in textiles and experts who actually have the textiles within their museums. Similarly for metal and for ceramics. And for craft, in the contemporary world, we're working very closely with the Crafts Council and with the heritage sector through Lyra Archaeological Park. Before the project, I had worked with a few of these people, but by no means all of them. So actually at our project meeting, our first project meeting in Southampton, was the first time that I had met most of these people, actually. And I must say it was a slightly scary experience because you've committed to working with them for 3 years and you just really hope that you're going to get on. And it turns out that actually we do. And we're having a really, really productive time working together. But I think it's only at that meeting that I suddenly had a moment when I thought, oh my goodness, I've taken an enormous risk here. But fortunately, it's paying off, and we're working extremely well together. You can see that the project organisation is such that an academic institution is working very closely with a museum. So we're paired up in terms of working with the material very, very closely. And I think that has also helped to generate a very productive working relationship. But those relationships within the project are not exclusive. So, for example, members of the metal team might go and visit material that's held by Zagreb Archaeological Museum, which is part of the pottery team. So we work together. So the project is created as a sort of very neat fit, a very neat jigsaw puzzle, and that, I think, has also contributed to its success. So in creating the consortium, the things that were uppermost in my mind were about what does the research need, the materials and the expertise. How could we create a balanced consortium? So we have a mixture of research and previous international experience. We have a nice balance with regard to age. So we have some very senior scholars and we have some who are just starting out. And we also have a 50-50 gender balance. As I said, part of it was understanding the risk, which I only understood retrospectively. And finally, I think the most important thing in creating the consortium, which I actually had a feeling for when I was talking to people and putting together the application, was that I actually really liked them. And if I could give you one piece of advice, which perhaps sounds really silly in a sense, it is to choose people to work with that you like, because it makes it just such a more fulfilling and enriching experience. During preparation of the proposal, I gave up on email, not because it was a means of communication, but it was just so much more effective to talk to people on the telephone. And I found that I could do so much more in terms of really developing ideas, thinking about what we wanted to say by a phone call to Vienna or to Zagreb or to Norway than I could by email. So I would thoroughly recommend that as a way of getting the ideas together. And the project creates, I think, international added value through its unique combination of pooled European expertise in fields that are frequently highly national. So archaeology has had very much sort of national traditions, and that's partly to do with material being nationally held or having specific kind of national importance with regard to heritage. But we're bringing these experiences together, and I think that's been extremely fruitful. We also have a comparative perspective, so we're comparing materials, we're comparing regions, and we're bringing that together within a European framework. The thematic approach also, I think, generates added value in as much as we're all working on the same questions through our different materials. And we have a series of scales in which our research is embedded, the local, the regional and the transnational. So we have very, very directed case studies, but they're also feeding through into a broader European level understanding. Management and coordination of the project does take up a significant amount of time. I think that it depends very much on individual project leaders how they manage their projects. For me, I would like to think, my project partners I hope would agree with me, that I try to emphasise flexibility, clarity and communication within that management style. And I think clarity is extremely important because we're all coming from different national backgrounds. Sometimes we think we're saying the same thing and we're not always. So it's very important, and that happens both within on the management level but also on the research level. So we found, for example, that the textiles team created a glossary of terminology where they had it in several different languages, so they all knew what they were talking about. But similarly, when we're actually within our project meetings, even if it's something very administrative, try and make sure that we all really understand it. So bouncing things back off the partners, making sure that we're all on the same page. And we have regular project meetings. We meet every 6 months in a different partner. And so far we've been to Austria, Denmark and sunny Southampton. And we will be going to Zagreb in May, and then we'll be going to Cambridge thereafter. So we're moving around. We have regular research team meetings, so the teams are talking very closely with each other, and that's also partly because of the material focus that we have within the research, which necessitates that. We have workshops, and we have an internal reporting system which is very, very helpful, particularly now I'm doing my second year report, in terms of knowing what the partners are doing and being able to just keep an eye on what's happening, and those go to our steering committee. We report back on them, and we're able to take themes that emerge out of those into the wider project meetings as well. And we have a website where we have a public-facing part and we have an internal partners part, which is for research. So we've got a whole range of stakeholders, and we've got a very wide range of dissemination activities. So we have, of course, the usual academic things, the books, the referee journal articles, the conferences, all of that. But we're also doing things, for example, with children, animating motifs, working with the museums and their outreach departments. We've done a prehistoric fashion show. Here you can see some of my Austrian colleagues and their children dressed up in Bronze Age costumes. We've done a whole range of things, and we have fun doing them, which is actually really nice. And then finally, I was asked to talk about unexpected things. I guess that the most onerous part of the application is the finance, which is the most complicated bit, really. And this is, of course, because you're working with all the different national rules. And it was absolutely critical to try to understand our partners' national rules as much as possible and use their contact points, use the national contact points. I suppose Lucy will talk more about the role of the national contact point, but those people are gems. They are absolutely wonderful, and in the call that I was in, I already knew that they were swamped with people asking them questions, but they really did do their best to help, even though they were swamped. And I suppose they'll be even more swamped this time round. So I would leave a lot of time to get your questions answered, because you will certainly have many of them. And each national partner will have very different rules about what they can put into their budget and what they cannot. So that was quite complex. I feel that I now have a deep knowledge of, HAZU, the Croatian equivalent of the HRC, and the FWF, the Austrian equivalent of the HRC. But, it's all good. And also, I think that if you're fortunate to get one of these, and it really is an extraordinary research journey that we're on, you might have to brace yourself for some quite substantial reporting. On the plus side, I have to say that our research has done so much more than I think we ever anticipated that it could do. And it has gone in directions that we couldn't have predicted, very productive directions that we couldn't have predicted, and that's been extraordinarily rewarding. And working within the European context has been a very amazing experience, and we're developing, I think, some very nice outputs at the moment. And I think appropriately for a creativity project, it's very nice to feel that we are actually stimulating new creative practices outside of our own academic environment. And working, I haven't put it on the slide, but working with our non-academic partners has also added another dimension to the project, because we really are working with them very closely, and gaining their experience has been really, really helpful on a whole number of different levels.